What is up, Prudent Nation? Welcome into week 3 pregame show for Blue Crew Media. Chris Vogel here with John Hendricks. John, what's going on?
Not too much. You can hear all the background noise from here. Field level. We got a little bit of light rain coming on right now, but man, it's a good day for some football, that's for sure.
Yeah, it sure sounds like a party out there. So let's start off with the big news. Alvin Kamara, he's back, missed week 2, now in the fold. What should we kind of expect with AK? I know it's one of those injuries where it could get re-aggravated, but clearly feels good enough to play today. What should we expect from Alvin Kamara?
Yeah, it's interesting because Tony Jones Jr. is inactive today, right? So with this one, really, not only him, but Deontay Hardy's inactive as well. So interesting because that's a good sign for Kamara and his availability. Probably see a little bit more of that boom and zoom combo today, right? And so you have Dwayne Washington who's going to play a little bit more factor on special teams. But look, I think this is a good, encouraging sign for Kamara. We talked about it last week, but look, you know, with Kamara being on the field during warmups and stuff, just one of those injuries with the rib cartilage injury takes time, right? And that's a lot of the Saints are dealing with that right now. Marcus May is another one. Taysom Hill. When it hurts to breathe, it hurts to talk, it hurts to laugh, do anything. That's just a hard time to play football. But look, I expect Kamara to be pretty active. Wouldn't say he's going to get a ton of touches. Just like, you know, you don't expect him to get 30 carries this game, right? I expect him to be a little bit more prominent in the passing game because Jameis Winston needs to hit those short and underneath routes to be able to be successful today.
Yeah, and, you know, Alvin Kamara active. He's not the only big name that's out there. Paulson Adebo making his 2022 season debut. This has been, you know, a situation where I know we talked about it before. We thought maybe Adebo would come back week 2, one more week for him. What should we kind of expect in terms of what you saw, let's say, in training camp and every day during that? I mean, you know, because there are people who don't get to see on a daily basis what he was doing in July and August. If he's able to mirror that, what do you think we can kind of expect on Sundays for Adebo?
I mean, he's the MVP of training camp, right? His physicality. I think that's the thing to watch here. Is he plays a very physical game. It's going to be very interesting to see how the officials call that because, look, he was very dominant off the line of scrimmage, very, you know, in coverage when he was going stride for stride with receivers. So that's something that I really pay attention to him. I expect him maybe to get a couple of penalties here and there, maybe have some stuff like that early on. But, you know, this is going to get worked out. But having him back in the lineup right now, presumably, and we're going to look at walkthroughs to make sure that he's actually going to start. Maybe he's just available just because Alontae Taylor went to IR. But again, we'll see because Bradley Roby's going to be there. But a good sign to see him active for the first time this year. They're going to need him when they got guys like Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen coming around the corner. A lot of good key matchups. Marshall Lattimore, you know what you get with him. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with Adebo with his first action today.
So you mentioned Alontae Taylor. That was obviously the disappointing news over the weekend. Gets placed on injured reserve, and this is a player who in week 2, 19 reps. I thought he looked really good, and most of them kind of stepped up to the plate when the moment was called. Is this an injury that we think is full year? Is this hopefully IR to return? Is it TBD? What's kind of the latest on Alontae?
Yeah, I think it's TBD right now. I mean, he got hurt in practice Thursday, right? And that's not a good thing when you get hurt in practice. Knee injury was already ruled out on Friday, so then put on IR, and he has to miss a minimum of 4 games, right? And so not a good look because you actually put it out there that of the Saints rookie draft class right now, Chris Olave is it, right? And so that's a disappointing thing. Not that it's, you know, maybe it's coincidence more than anything, but I thought Taylor looked really good playing special teams. I think that's really the big thing for me is that he was getting down there with the quickness and punt coverage, playing on the kickoff team. So that's where you're really going to miss a guy like that. But he's out for the next 4 games. Dennis Allen had said, we'll see. So not encouraging news, but again, a lot of football that he played. I expect him to be one of those guys that, assuming it's nothing super serious, that he will be back. He's active on social media. So, you know, you just read between the tea leaves.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, looking at the inactive, we talked about who's in. Kamara's in. Adebo's in. There's some notable names on the inactive list. Let's kind of start with Deontay Hardy and Taysom Hill. That kind of changes in terms of having those versatile weapons. Obviously, neither player is really in terms of heavy workload on offense. I would say neither one's really had that yet. So maybe it doesn't affect as much as fans might think initially. But in terms of the special teams game, those are 2 players that play a key factor. Do we have any kind of idea who's going to replace them in those special teams roles?
Yeah, let's start with Deontay Hardy because what everybody's got to remember is he was limited this week to start off in practice the first 2 days with the foot injury, and he was a full go on Friday. But again, he was out here on the field warming up pregame. it didn't look like he was going to play, right? And that's never a good thing. So I would expect somebody like Marquez Callaway to be a return presence today. Maybe you try AK if you're really feeling lucky here. Dwayne Washington's another one. They have guys that do this all the time during training camp. I don't think it's ideal to put Chris Olave there. I think it's Marquez Callaway that's going to be the guy. And as far as Taylor's absence, they called up rookie DeMarcus Fields from the practice squad. I feel like he's going to get the bulk of those reps right now. Callaway can play some gunner, can play some jammer, so I would expect him to be another one to look forward to. But, never ideal. And, of course, Traquan Smith makes his season debut, too. That's going to be a pretty good addition to this run team, run blocking and such, but somebody we didn't really talk about. But, not a good look to not have Hardy in the lineup and Taylor, but these are injuries and these guys are here, so that's the good news. Hardy is at least, and then expect him hopefully to be back to London.
Yeah, certainly. And another inactive, one of those that's really unfortunate because I think he's had moments where he's looked really sharp through the 2 games. Not having Marcus May right now with him being banged up. What do you think in terms of safety? Do we think that's kind of PJ Williams' chance to kind of slide in and make some noise today?
Yeah, absolutely. It's PJ Williams show, right? And then you got Justin Evans there, Daniel Sorensen. Again, this is depth that they have on this team. Is some of those guys playing exactly more encouraging than having Marcus May? Not necessarily, but PJ Williams is the guy who started for this team. He's played for this team at back end. I think he's going to be just fine alongside Tyrann Mathieu. The biggest thing is the communication. Panthers ruled Terrace Marshall out for this game. So it's Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore, your main weapons that you got to lock down. That figures to be a Lattimore thing, but the biggest thing is don't let Baker Mayfield extend the play, big plays. Obviously his pass rush has got to get things going. So I don't think it's as big of a loss, but I really like what May has brought to the table 2 games in, playing with a lot of intensity, getting there quickly. So it's still a big loss, but I think DJ Williams will be just fine back there.
Yeah, and, no Taysom Hill today. I think that, kind of takes away that spark plug if the offense gets in a funk. More pressure on the first team unit, though. Guys like Jameis and the rest of them to get things going. As for Jameis, this is kind of going to be a conversation that until we know he's back to full strength, is him dealing with the back and the ankle injury. I know it came out earlier today that he's experienced some discomfort, but he's going to be out there. He's going to be doing his thing. Have you noticed anything different from Jameis so far, and do you kind of hope that it's going to be business as usual? What's kind of the expectation there?
Well, here's the thing. Jameis Winston wasn't on the field during pregame. He normally is out there one of the first to hit the field, going through his pregame warm-up type stuff. He did not do that today. So not a good look, but, at the same time, the way with his back and everything that's going on, and not to mention it's not just the back, it's his ankle. So those are 2 things that, as a quarterback, you're going to need both of those types of things. I don't think the back affected him last week. The foot, ankle, that's another thing with the scrambling ability that he could potentially have. Plays last week where he could have picked up some first downs with his feet. I think he'll be okay, but obviously not seeing him out here in pregame is a little bit concerning. But, this is going to be one of those that they're going to have to take a little bit of a cautious approach, see how things kind of unfold here. But I think Winston will be okay in the long run. But this sounds painful to deal with. But, talking with him in the locker room, he's not hiding behind that, right, as an excuse. But this team has got to be better on third down. They've got to be able to move the ball today. It's going to hinge a lot on Winston and in this offensive line, getting the ground going with Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara will be huge. And then obviously don't turn the ball over. He had 5 turnovers last week. You cannot do that this week. Limit that to none, maybe 1 at most, because those things are never going to let you win games.
Yeah, certainly. And last thing before we wrap things up, as usual, John, a matchup that we're kind of focusing on. I think something that I talked about throughout the week, I'm curious, Pete Werner, Demario Davis, how do you match up with CMC? Whichever one gets that matchup with McCaffrey, that's going to be interesting. In addition to that, what's kind of something you're looking forward in this matchup? I remember week 1, you kind of called it about the offensive line and how they've been looking. Go figure, the offensive line played a key role in terms of them struggling and what happened. So week 3, what's kind of a matchup that you're looking for with the Panthers and Saints?
Yeah, first thing is the defensive line. You've got to get more pass rush. And, of course, we've talked about it. It didn't make sense to send a lot of blitzing against a mobile quarterback. Week 2, Tom Brady, you don't blitz him a lot. That's understandable, too. This is the week that we should see the Saints pass rush come alive a lot more. They have their full array. Peyton Turner's out. You've got Tano Passignon up. You've got Marcus Davenport, Cam George. You've got all this talent here. It's time to get home on the quarterback. It's time to do a lot of this good stuff. So, look, I am looking at that and how they absolutely match up against this Panthers defensive line are going to be the big, or offensive line is going to be key here. And then I'm obviously going to look at, like you said, Pete Warner, Damari Davis against Christian McCaffrey. He's such a very good weapon to have for the Panthers, but that's where their offense kind of revolves around things. So, look, I expect them to not necessarily stop him completely, because you can't do that, but negate some of the big plays, because he's always that one step away from breaking something really big.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see what happens. It's week 3, Saints, Panthers. I don't want to slap the must-win label on there, but it's a really important game, obviously, going into this one, and we'll see what happens. John, thank you so much for taking time, and thank you, everyone who tuned into the pregame show. We'll be back, obviously, next week. Should be a pretty fun one, Saints-Vikings. But for now, it's Saints-Panthers, 3rd division game in a row. We'll see if the Saints improve to 2-1 on the season.